Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we are going to build this deluxe pit kit from Autoworld. This is an HO scale or 1/64 scale slot car pit kit. If you would do me a huge favor, even if you don't watch this whole video all the way through, because most of us don't, heck, I skip around myself, but please at least skip to the end of the video because I have a question about this kit that I need your input on. I have a decision to make and I don't know what to do. So, for the love of God, please go to the end of the video and help me out. Answer my question. With that, let's build this thing. I want to talk about two things real quick before we actually start the assembly. Number one, tools. You will need a very small Phillips head screwdriver, and I suggest strongly a pair of really fine nose tweezers to assemble this kit. You have to have that, and you really do need this because, as you can see, some of these parts and pieces are very, very small. Secondly, the packaging itself for the deluxe pit kit. The instructions for building it are on the back of the packaging. Now I read through the instructions all the way over one time before I even start anything, just so I get an idea of how this kit goes together. Then I will go back and I will take one direction at a time. Like step one, I will read it. I will find its corresponding number to the diagram just to see how the part goes together and what the part looks like. After I've done that, so that's reading it through twice. I know it's a lot of reading, but it makes the assembly much easier, much quicker in the long run. Then I will go back to that step and I will get those particular parts out. I will lay them out in my workspace and, well, you assemble that step. Autoworld pit kits, the deluxe pit kits. This one here is for a Super 3 chassis. They have other chassis for other cars that they produce. So every build's gonna be just a little bit different. One thing I have noticed across all of the builds for all their different types of chassis, however, is that they give you directions to build this kit from scratch. Like if this thing was completely torn apart down to nothing to put it together. However, every Autoworld pit kit that I have assembled has come partially assembled. Why is that important? Well, because if you read through these steps like I suggest, you'll come across a few steps that you'll be looking for parts and pieces for, and guess what? They're already on the chassis. As an example, your traction magnets, it tells you to install them in the directions, but they're already installed. Your axles, your gear, already installed. Your wheels, already installed. A few other things here, they're already installed on this pit kit, as well as every other pit kit from the different types of chassis that I have put together with an Autoworld deluxe pit kit. We need to start with putting the armature spacer on the front of the armature. The front of the armature is the part that has this extra piece on the shaft here, not the blank shaft. So that goes on first, and I really didn't need these tweezers for that, but I'm just going to put them down because now they're just getting away. Okay, and next up we have to put the spacers on. Now real quick, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. I'll try to grab them here with the tweezers. These spacers, they have two different diameters on either side of this round spacer here. Narrow or diameter on this side and a wider diameter on that side. The narrow diameter goes facing inward and the wider diameter faces outbound, and each one of those slips on the ends of our armature. Now that we have our spacer and our bushings on our armature, we need to put our pinion gear on. And this just presses on the back of the long shaft. Press it all the way down till it seats firmly. Once we have our pinion gear on, now we need to slide the whole armature into the chassis. I don't know how well you can see, but here and here, you'll see it's kind of like a little grooved section on both of these. These are where the armature bushings are going to sit, and that is why it's important to have the narrow and the wide side in the correct orientation on this armature itself. So if you get it lined up, this pretty much just falls right in, just like that. And you can kind of hold your thumb lightly over top of the armature and turn the rear wheels forward towards the front of the car, and as long as it's spinning freely, you know you have it in there correctly. Once you have the armature in the frame itself, it's time to put the magnets in. And as you can see, hopefully these magnets have a inner and outer curvature to them. You want to have the inner curvature facing the actual armature itself. So kind of, it's going to wrap, well, let me get the screwdriver here. If this was the armature motor, it's going to wrap around it like that. That's how we get power to the motor. So these slide in whoop, on these side pockets right here. Let's get started and push her down in. And there's no right or wrong way to go, as long as they go with the convex side facing inwards. And again, once I do this step, I have these seated firmly by pressing them all the way down into the frame. Again, I'm going to very lightly hold the armature down and spin the axle just to make sure everything is still free and smooth. Now that we have the magnets installed, it's time to put the motor mount clip, or the body clip. Actually, this does two things. This clip actually holds the motor in place, or the armature in place, and it has little tabs on the side where the body will clip in once we're all done. And as you can see here, there are little holes, or slots I should say, in the side of the frame that correspond to little tabs in the side of this little piece of plastic that holds the armature in place. And you just kind of put one in one tab, or one slot, I'm sorry, spread it a little bit and slide it down until it pops into place. And again, we can hold it down and spin it. Now you might have to hold your bushing down here just a little bit, and the way I think spins nice and smooth. I like that. This next step is already half done by the factory, and we have to do half of it ourselves, and that is to put the pickup shoes in place. It tells you just to like slip them in and they'll just fall in place, but that's because these parts have not been installed yet, according to the directions. But as you can see, they are already installed. So what we have to do, so this is a little tricky, is you have these little itty bitty retainer springs right here that hold your pickup shoes in place. And of course, your pickup shoes have little hooks on them, and they hook over this little barrel right here. But with the spring being in the way, you can't just drop it in. You've got to kind of weave this in through the spring backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the curved edge of our pickup shoe, I'm going to set it into the spring, twist it forward until it goes through just like that. Then we can bring it to the front of this barrel and just slide this over top of our little connecting point on the front of the chassis, and there you go. Your pickup shoe is installed. Same with this other one. One side might be a little more finicky than the other. It's the nature of the beast. And I say that because this side's a little more finicky. Not too terribly bad, but a little more finicky. And as you can see, this pickup shoe is not seated properly down in there. So I'm just going to take my tweezers and kind of guide it down in. There we go. Now we have our pickup shoes installed. And my bad, I actually skipped a step before putting on the pickup traction, or pickup shoes, and that is to install this little motor retainer. Again, it's just another part of the chassis that helps hold this motor in place. Again, you have little tabs and little slots, so it just pops into place. Boom, like that. Okay, that was real easy, right? Not a big deal. Here comes the real tedious part, and the actual, what I would consider the dangerous part. We will be installing these small pieces. We will be installing our motor brush spring, and the little barrel set screw into this barrel on each side of our motor. So how that goes in is your motor brush goes in first, and this is where you really need a pair of good needle nose tweezers. And I'm sorry I can't hold this close to the camera, but I don't want to lose it. That gets dropped in. And here is the most dangerous part, is these stinking springs. Okay, see? Just try to pick it up. That thing flings all over the place. As I had mentioned earlier, I did drop one of these on my carpet, and I spent many, many hours looking for it. And the bad thing is, well, not a bad thing, but they are brass and not metal, so they are non-magnetic. Therefore, I have to use a pair of tweezers and not a nice little magnet, which makes life much simpler. Yes, I'm fighting with this big time because I'm so afraid to put any kind of pressure on this and have it spring out. Okay, and our set screw. These are Phillips head on one side. I picked it up properly. Now I'm just going to kind of set it in there, hold it in place with my finger just for a moment. And of course it gets pulled over by the magnet. That's all right. Excuse my head. Well, we're going to try this. We're going to hold it with the tweezers, hold it in the barrel, and get our screwdriver on it, see if we can just get started. And this is very hard to do when I'm half blind, and have to stay far away so that you don't see my big head in the way. And again. This time you're upside down, huh? That's fine, we'll hold you upside down. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier. Yes, I'm babbling. And yes, the screwdriver is a little bit too big. Jeweler screwdrivers would be best for this. Okay, screw all the way down. That's one side in. And one more time, let's spin it. All right, the danger is over. That is the hardest part of this entire build. Now I'm going to try to do basically 2 steps in 1 step. We have to put our pickup shoe retainers in place, and this little spring holds all of this together, which is called your armature bushing retainer spring. So on our pickup shoe retainers, they are very, very similar. However, if you can look real close, let me get these on the tweezers here. You will notice, hopefully, that one of these arms is just a little bit longer than the other side. And the longer side goes inbound on the chassis on both sides. And these sit right over top of this section right here. If I can get it in properly. Sorry if my hands keep getting in the way, but this is a small thing to work on, right? And now we put our little retaining clip on. If you can notice, this little springy clip has a little, well, a little teeth come out the bottom, I guess you could say, a little curves on a little piece of metal. This actually hooks under the chassis, right behind our pickup shoes. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to just install very carefully on one side, is put it underneath, put it over top of our pickup shoe retainers, spread the other part, the other side over, slide it down until it kind of like pops over, like that. Next up, we are going to put our pin guide on the front of the chassis, just a piece of metal. There's a little tab in the front. You slip it on there or over top of it, and you kind of just pop it in place, just like that. And that is it. Lastly, for the chassis is to put the tires on. Now you'll notice on these tires, hopefully you'll notice that you have a very flat side and a rounded side. Of course, I want the rounded side facing out on my tires to look, well, like real tires. Those just slide on the wheels. The same for the front tires. You have a flat and a rounded edge. And there is our chassis complete. Not too bad. We're going to give us a spin test again. Nice. One thing I do suggest that you do with all of your slot cars, even periodically, but especially after you build one, is to get some slot car oil. And we're going to oil a few spots on this slot car itself. As far as this particular pit kit goes, this is the 70 Mustang. And it has these air intakes that stick out of the hood, which I'm not too keen on. I don't know if I'm going to keep that or not. I might actually fill this in. But if you were to keep it, there are 2 different pin sizes and 2 different hole sizes on your hood. So these do go a certain direction, and you would have to super glue those in. But that's it. That is the deluxe pit kit finished for the Super 3 chassis for the 7D Mustang. Now we're not done with this slot car yet. The next and final step is to paint this body. I don't want a white plastic looking slot car. As a matter of fact, I want to give this a 70s style paint job, and I want to do it in candy. I love candy paints. My idea for the paint job are going to be black stripes over a metal flake base. Then I'm going to bury those stripes into a candy paint job to try to create a ghost stripe, if you will. I don't know how well it's going to work. I've never tried it, so it's something that I want to give it a try. Now, the question that I have for you folks, the help that I need, is I needed to know what color to paint this car. I have 2 colors that I really, really love, and I can't decide. Those 2 colors are Carib Blue and Poison Green, and I don't know which one I want to do. These, again, are candies, and it will be a metal flake base underneath. So it's going to be super bright, super sparkly when I'm done. It's going to be really, really cool. I will actually post some images of these paints that are from the Createx website as being kind of painted on something, so you get an idea what these look like. So in the comments below, please leave me a message. Just leave me blue or green. Let me know what color I should paint this car. I'm going to give this video a couple of weeks to kind of get everybody's opinions in, and then we're going to go through. I'm going to show you step by step how I do a candy paint job on an HO scale slot car, which, you know, a lot of people are afraid of candies, but this Createch stuff is pretty phenomenal and is pretty easy to work with.